Thank you for joining us on Salt and Pepper Unleashed. This ain't your grandma's nursing home. I'm pleased to be joined today by Tricia Thomas, certified professional organizer and owner of Easy Declutter Solutions. Welcome, Tricia.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming and joining us today. You know, we'll just jump right into it. Oftentimes, we see seniors who are having a difficult time or feel overwhelmed at the thought of downsizing. It's often complicated by the fact that their kids and family members actually don't want their items. So we're glad you're here today to shed some light and lend your expertise on this topic. So let's start off with the first question, very general, just to kind of break the ice here. What is clutter, and are there different types of clutter? And how does that differ from hoarding, which I think has become relatively infamous in the last decade with some of the shows?
Yes, there are multiple types of clutter. Clutter is actually anything that stands in the way of you and the life you want to be living. Clutter, there's different types of clutter. First, you have the physical clutter, which is what most of us know. And those are things like any items that are gathered in your house, your office, your car. It could be extra clothing or households or tools, just items that you collect. There's also mental clutter, and mental clutter might be something you're worried about, your unending to-do lists, things like that. There's emotional clutter. Maybe that is a toxic relationship or negative self-talk. You have paper clutter. Paper clutter is any type of mail, receipts, books, magazines, physical photos. And then you have digital clutter, which can be any type of photos or emails on your phone or computer. And then finally, you have sentimental clutter, which sentimental clutter is often the most difficult to part with because emotions are tied to the items. And so, yeah.
So would sentimental, could that likely fall into physical or even paper with photos and stuff? I mean, could it be two different types of clutter or multiple types of clutter at the same time?
Yes, and sentimental clutter, it can be any type. Sometimes sentimental clutter is things that have been collected along on vacations.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something handed down from a friend or a parent who's passed. Sentimental clutter is definitely the most difficult to get rid of. You also asked, how's that differ from hoarding?
Yeah.
Clutter can be managed. Hoarding often takes some type of mental intervention. Wow. It's a mental disorder often caused by trauma, whether it's a death, a divorce, some type of childhood trauma, sexual abuse. And often the clients haven't dealt with it in a healthy way, and so they tend to hang on to items, and they have a difficulty letting go. So and it doesn't matter the value of the item.
So have you had experience where a client has raised their hand, reached out and said, hey, I want some help, and you've come in and you've said this is beyond the scope of what I'm prepared to help you with, and then connected them to other professionals or worked in tandem with?
Well,
others?
Unfortunately, I see hoarding a lot.
Yeah.
It's very common. It's a very common thing that you see. There's only been one that I've actually turned down. There's actually 5 levels of hoarding.
Wow, did not know that.
So it could go from level 1, where you don't even really know what's going on. They just collect a lot of stuff, to level 5, where it becomes more dangerous. They might have utility bills disconnected, no running water, no clean dishes, blocked exits to where it's a safety hazard and a fire hazard.
So the infamous shows that have become popular over the last several years, would you classify those as kind of like the stage 5s?
Yes.
Okay.
Most of those are. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting Matt Paxton from Morrow.
Really?
At a charity event.
Okay.
And we talked quite a while about that. And just as he shared, it's not about the stuff, it's about the stories behind the stuff. And so many people are attached to their stuff.
Well, I'm interested to get into kind of the strategies that you employ to help folks get over that. But just as you're talking about the different forms of clutter, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm guilty of at least 3, if not 4 or 5 of those. And so I have a feeling that when you start to better understand what clutter is, it becomes a lot easier to, at the very least, first identify it and then start to, develop some of these strategies to overcome it. Is that typically what you find? Is that you typically have to educate people initially?
Yeah, and we often will ask the client questions that will help them to ask them certain questions, which will help them determine what to keep and what to let go of. And we can work with them and walk them through it so that it makes it less stressful on them. And oftentimes, the sentimental clutter might be, you got to realize a lot of my clients have been in these homes for 30, 40, 50 years. So their entire household is memories that they're attached to. It might be someone who's passed, or it might be just trips they've gone on. And so it is difficult letting go. So sometimes we'll tell them, you can only take so much, but oftentimes there's different ways we can handle sentimental clutter. And often we can tell them, take a picture of it.
Yeah.
If you don't have the physical room, take a picture of the item, and you can make a photo book on different things that are sentimental to you and create a book. And that's something that some of my clients have done.
It's interesting when we talk about clutter and just, I don't want to use the word hoarding because it sounds like that's a very negative, connotated form. But when we look at clutter, when we look at residents moving into a senior living community, like Greenwood Village South, and there's an anticipation of downsizing and reorganizing, one of the things that comes up so many times is there is a misconception of who wants what I perceive to be valuable things of mine, right? And so a lot of times they look to the children who I have found emphatically do not want their stuff at all. But then also there's this, they almost tag their items with an associated financial value. And so they don't want to throw those dollars away. And at the very least, they want someone to get the benefit from those. Yes. And so just with some of those concepts in mind that I have found intriguing to see how persistent the same issues are applied to almost every scenario. What are some of those strategies that you do kind of apply to those folks and help them get through this process in a much more, I guess, emotionally palatable, less stressful way?
Yeah, oftentimes we'll talk to the clients if they have too much stuff. We try to talk to them about their new space and where they're going to go and how do they want to feel in their space. But not only that, but how do they want to spend their time? How do they want their space to feel? What do they want to do in their space? And then if they have a lot of extra things, which they often do, we will also talk to them about giving to those less fortunate. We partner with a lot of different charities and animal shelters, so we like to give back to the community and give to those less fortunate. So oftentimes we will also say you can hand down to your kids, but like you say, most of my clients have 1 or 2 or 3 sets of china, and our kids don't want that. Yeah. But it's good to let go and allow yourself to let other things in.
Yeah, absolutely. You just said a few things there that hit me that, man, if we could use these as like the measuring sticks for what to hold on to and whatnot, how do you want to feel in your new space? And what do you want to do with your time? All right, so I'm going to give you a few examples. So every now and then, when it comes to clothing, I will, for whatever reason, something will spark and I'll be like, I'm going to go through my closet and get rid of anything that I've not worn in, several months, if not a year or more. And, as I'm going through that process, I'm like, but maybe I would wear it. I'm like, no, stick to your guns. And then I do. And then I get rid of all this stuff. And then it's like, oh, wow, I can actually move my hangers on the, closet racks and I can actually see what clothes are in here. And so
Yes.
it does. It kind of feels good to kind of free up that space and the congestion. And there's the concept of paralysis by analysis. And I think a lot of people go through that. And it's like, I don't know why I have so many clothes. I wear the same things over and over and over again. I have a feeling a lot of people are in that same boat. But what do you want to do with your time? I have so many things in my garage that I, with great intentions have purchased over the years, and I've not done anything with them. And that's another kind of prime example that's kind of striking to me that, um, you know, have you worn it in the last year? It's kind of one of those general questions that you hear, but then also, oh, that you have all this material for this hobby. When's the last time that you've knitted or crocheted with all these materials? Is that what other kind of questions or I guess self-reflective activities do you help folks see through the forest?
Well, regarding your clothing question or issue, we wear 20% of our clothing 80% of the time.
Wow.
That is statistically kind of pretty common for most people. And a lot of us might hang on to it thinking we'll wear it someday instead of parting with it. But another thing that a lot of people think about when they're decluttering is they think about what they're losing instead of what they're gaining by letting go. Just like you said, you had more space in your closet by letting go. So that's something that we try to get others to focus on is what they're gaining by letting go. More space, and how does that make them feel to have that extra space? They can make decisions easier and get ready. There's a lot of benefits to that as well.
This kind of leads me into my next question. And by the way, I love that, the 80-20 rule applies in so many aspects of our lives. I never thought of it applying to clothing, but I would bet that if any of our listeners would really stop and be intentional and think about that, I bet there'd be a striking number of folks who could say, yep, I'm maybe even 90-10 or so. That's wild. But you talked about focusing on what you're gaining versus what you're giving up. So what are some of the benefits of decluttering? You kind of alluded to a few, but help me better understand the positives versus people just coming to the realization that they're losing.
Yeah, good question. And first and foremost, especially for our seniors, one of the benefits of decluttering is safety issues from fall. A lot of seniors will have too many things on the floor, which is a trip hazard, or rugs, or extra clutter that will cause them to fall and get hurt. So just by decluttering, it improves safety. It also improves overall stress and time and energy. Like I said, it helps you to get ready quicker, and it improves your morning routine because you don't have so many decisions of what to wear, things like that. Financial benefits. A lot of people will buy duplicates because they didn't realize they already had it. So they'll buy it again, or maybe they have a late fee on their bill because now they couldn't find their bill and now they have late fees. So being organized and decluttering also will help with that type of thing. A lot of benefits as far as increases blood pressure and improve better sleep and things, or decreases blood pressure, I'm sorry, better sleep, things like that.
Yeah. All right. I've got to ask you, because you mentioned, sometimes they'll find out that they already had something. They bought duplicate. What's one of the funniest or craziest stories that you've encountered where someone has like 7 of the same thing that most people only at best have one of? Or
Well, I think this was intentional, though. One of my clients that I was decluttering for, she had like 15 flashlights. But it wasn't something she bought again.
Yeah.
She just had 15 flashlights because she was afraid one wouldn't work.
Oh my goodness.
She had
Were they
5
strategically
lamps.
deployed in different locations?
Yes, she had put those out in different locations.
Wow.
But I often come into contact with people who have bought, especially with refrigerator and pantry, things like that, where they'll buy duplicate items. As far as a funny story, I don't really know what.
or you're not willing to share, because I bet there's some interesting ones that you've encountered.
I did have a lady who had a lot of different baking goods,
Uh-huh.
and it took up her whole entire kitchen
Wow.
because she had multiple things of flour and sugar and things like that.
So
But
now here's the big question with her. Did she bake?
she used to, but when she downsized to senior living, she didn't realize she was going to have all of her meals and didn't need all that.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point too. When you think of your kitchen, and a lot of times, oh my goodness, how many times do you get? People are just so desperately searching for more storage, more storage, more storage. And it's like, well, you have to think about what your life is going to what your lifestyle is going to look like. One, there's plenty of storage when you look at it. 2, you'll likely never utilize all the storage that you will have because your lifestyle will change so much more, positively that you don't need all those things. That's an interesting one I hadn't really thought of, but yeah, I have a feeling our pantry would get cleaned out whenever we make that move. So what's the process look like when decluttering and reorganizing / organizing, all the way from kind of the mental model of the person raising their hand saying I'm ready to you coming in and all the way through the process?
Well, first we have to approach our clients with compassion because, again, there's a lot of emotion tied. There's a lot of sentimental items involved. So we have to be compassionate with our clients. And we also tell them to take their own time doing it because it is an emotional process and sometimes it's not easy to do. So we'll often, when we're decluttering, we will start with something not sentimental, like maybe start in a bathroom or a small drawer or something that's simple, do small steps. That tends to motivate them a little more. We also encourage taking before and after pictures so they can see the progress they've made. And that has actually been something that's pretty neat to see. They forget how bad things were, and so they take a picture before and after. And then when we go into the decluttering.
That's my office right there.
Yeah. And I tell people, think about how you're feeling when you come home to this versus a space that is not cluttered and how it makes you feel emotionally when you've been out at a long day. Maybe you've been running errands or maybe you've been at a funeral and you come home to clutter versus not clutter. Just emotionally how it makes you feel. So
it's interesting you say that. Just looking at these two photos of the cluttered desk and the uncluttered desk, and this is almost like a subconscious thing that I do typically on like a Friday evening when I'm packing up for the weekend and taking stuff home. I'll intentionally just stack things on my desk. And so it creates so much perceived open desk space because the work is still there. It's not gone anywhere, but it's stacked, it's neat, it's organized. And when I come in on Monday mornings, it's like, okay, wow, did someone come in and do my work for me this weekend? No, it's still there, but mentally, it just feels a lot more approachable than what it would otherwise.
Well, paper clutter is very common.
Yeah.
Also, people really struggle with that. And there are ways to overcome paper clutter by having systems set up, knowing if you're a visual or a non-visual person. Some people have to have it out on their desk or they'll forget. Versus someone who can have it put away and they'll still remember to pay bills. And then know if you're a visual person and you have to have it out, then you can put it into different categories, whether it's maybe it's one that requires action versus non-action. And maybe you can have just 2 trays, action, non-action, which helps with that. But it's really important to create a system for incoming and outgoing mail to make it simple based on, and that's something we help with as well.
It's amazing. A lot of the things that we've talked about, they're very basic concepts and very simple behaviors, but it takes intentionality and consistency. But I could see how people could really transform their day-to-day life just by, getting some help and intentionally making some of these adjustments and then maintaining them. I think that's the biggest thing that I fall into is my intentions are good. I apply some of these strategies, but then over time, it's like, as you mentioned, as stress builds up and things pull you in different directions, you kind of let those strategies go and you get off track. Do you have, or I guess what type of approaches do you take or, little tips and tricks you give to your clients to maintain something? Because it's one thing to declutter, it's another to maintain the decluttered environment.
Well, oftentimes we will get them involved so that we can set up systems that are appropriate for how they're using things now. We'll often ask them what's working and what's not working so we can tweak how they're using their space and set up a system that's more functional for them. Especially with the hoarding, they really need certain systems, and I have found that to be very productive and effective for those clients when you set up a system. And we also try to keep the communication open and be there for support to help them for any questions or concerns or struggles they're having, to guide them along the way.
You're talking about support. That's one of the questions I wanted to ask is, there's physical support. I think that happens a lot with these scenarios, downsizing, decluttering. I mean, typically there's a lot of physical items that need handled. But then I would imagine there's a lot of emotional support needed through the process, some peaks and some valleys of some of your clients' behavior as they're some tears shed and maybe even some fierce words exchanged that you've experienced from time to time.
Well, we tell them, like I said, it can be very emotional, and that's normal. But just to follow your own energy, and if something seems sentimental, it really does help to hold each item to see what kind of feeling it produces. Kind of like Marie Kondo says, if it produces joy. Some people will hold on to different sentimental items that produces a negative feeling, and those are typically a good item that you can let go of.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep everything. And oftentimes people will feel guilty to let go of items that maybe was handed down from a parent or a grandparent that's deceased, because they also feel like they're dishonoring them by letting go.
Yes. How often? So I can relate to that. How often is that the case? Is that the guilt is the main factor in that?
That happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I tell people that it is okay to let go, because then you can give it to someone who's less fortunate, who can appreciate the product. And it doesn't mean you're dishonoring your friend or family member by letting it go.
Gosh, that one hits home, because I have a feeling that is a primary driver for so many bad decisions when it comes to holding on to things and creating that clutter.
Well, and one more thing I will add is, you have a lot of sentimental items. So it's best to just keep the ones that are the most important to you, the ones that produce that feeling that really make you happy and bring you joy. Some people hang on to it, again, because it was just given to them, versus the ones that really make you feel happy. You want to surround yourself with things that you love or need or use, and then also think of its function. Is it something functional that you can use? There's a lot of different things to consider when making a decision of a sentimental item.
I have a feeling that the relief that you create in this process is almost palpable in some folks, because you've got so many just processes and questions and self-reflective comments that it's like you can make this a very objective, logical process without the unnecessary negative or dramatic emotional spikes throughout. But I have a feeling there are a lot of people that need that external professional resource in order to find that success. So here's a good question for a lot of our residents. How far in advance should people start, one, being cognizant of their clutter when they're looking to downsize and move, and then actually starting the process?
Well, as soon as they've made the decision to downsize, they should start immediately. Some people don't know until last minute. Typically 3 to 6 months is good. But if you know you're going to downsize and you want to move next year, it's good to start the process. Several benefits to that. One is you're not rushed, so you can make easier or better decisions for those sentimental items. But it just helps you to sort through things without feeling like you're rushed. So you can make better decisions as to what works good for you. And it's also what your new space is going to look like. If most often it's to a smaller area. And it gives you time to also figure out what you want to do with those items, whether you want to sell or donate or hand down to another family member. I tell people it's okay to put things in storage temporarily, but too many people put things in storage and they spend years not knowing what's in them, and they just continue to put them in.
And that becomes pretty expensive over time. Storage units aren't inexpensive like they used to be.
Right.
So that's, and now I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I know you're not a realtor, but I would imagine, and this is through my own personal experience, that anytime that I've bought a home, which has been limited to 3 different times, but when we've looked at homes, whenever they're full of, perceived clutter or a lot of personal sentiments, even pictures. It's awkward. I feel awkward. And so I would imagine that there is a huge benefit to folks that if they're downsizing, if they're selling a home, there's huge benefit into that sales process. One, quicker, but two, likely getting a better value or a better offer than they would otherwise. Do you see that to be the case?
Yeah, decluttering definitely will improve the value of the home. Is that what you're asking?
Which is kind of wild to think is the physical home doesn't change whatsoever, but it's the perception of the person buying it.
So we help with the staging process all the time, and we basically just go in and give them tips on to clearing out anything that's personal, take down pictures, clear surfaces, take off your refrigerator magnets, things like that. Yeah. But yeah, by cleaning the clutter, it just helps the home to look more open and definitely will increase the value.
I have literally made decisions because there's too much personal stuff exposed. It's like the home could check all the boxes, but it just it doesn't feel right. So that's interesting that something seemingly insignificant could have that much of an impact.
Yeah, and my mom's a realtor, so I've been around real estate my whole life.
So you've got the insight, and you've got, she's probably coached you a little bit on what works,
she's in her
what
80s
doesn't.
now, but she's still involved and enjoys it. And I've been around it a lot and love working with realtors. So
when she's ready to move to Greenwood Village South, you'll be able to help her get ready for that downside, right? Perfect. Perfect. All right, so we've referenced some of the pictures up here, but let's go back through them here and just kind of walk us through some narrative on a few of these.
Okay. Well, this is a kitchen, as you can see. The countertops are cluttered. The trash is overflowing. They've got trip hazards on the floor. So if they come home to cook, there's not even the dishes or a surface that is clean. It's much better to come home to a cleaner house so that you don't have to come home and try to cook on that, because who wants to cook in that area? If you come home to this, it's a lot nicer. You'll be able to find things, and you don't have a smelly trash can.
As amazing as that kitchen looks, if we go back, I would almost, I'm scared to cook in that kitchen just because I don't want to dirty it up. Dirty. Yeah, I mean, it's 6-1 half dozen, but no, I would feel much more comfortable preparing a meal in that kitchen versus the other one. It feels like you've got to put in work before you can work with the previous one.
Yeah, so this...
you got a picture of my garage. Thank you.
25% of people use their garages as storage units, and they can't park their car in the garage because of that. And at least here there's one car. You can't hardly see it, but it is to the right. So oftentimes, this is very common. We see this all the time. They don't know what to do with it. They're overwhelmed. And in reality, we just have too much stuff. Yeah. And oftentimes, people just don't use... We use 20% of what we own, statistically. So the 80% is clutter.
That's a good garage right there. That I am truly guilty of the first garage picture. One, I didn't see the car until you mentioned it, the little red car off to the right. But we have a 3-bay garage, and we have 2 vehicles, in which it can only fit one of those because of the clutter. I've got a motorcycle that I haven't ridden in probably 18 months, and so a lot of the same things ring true. So when I say, "Oh, you got a picture of my garage," it's more true than it is humorous, which is a little scary.
So is there a reason you haven't rode your motorcycle in 18 months? Is it because you don't have time or you don't enjoy it, or what's the reason behind that? I'm just curious.
I enjoy it tremendously. I would say time is the biggest factor.
Okay.
With 3 young kids,
explains it.
They take a lot. And I don't really want to put a 10-year-old on the back of the motorcycle. So maybe I can ease back into it, and then when they go off to college, I can really pick it back up.
No, but that's fair. That's, you've got your priorities, and that's good to hear.
Absolutely. What else do we have here? Kitchen, more kitchen. We went over the office.
So this one is you've got two people here that are doing their own thing, pretty much ignoring the clutter. Now in the background, you can't see on this picture as much, but the pictures are crooked. You've got trip hazards all over the floor and clutter, but they don't seem to care. They just are doing their own thing. So this is typically, obviously, their norm to what their conditions are. But the biggest concern here is the trip hazards on the floor, because seniors often fall and get hurt because of trip hazards, and even if they're used to it. So if you come home to this, things are off the floor. It's just a more peaceful feeling to come home to that and feel like things are organized.
Yeah, I feel like I could relax a lot easier in that living room than the previous one. What else? Are there any more that we've got?
What's all of those? Now, one thing I was going to, not to change what we were talking about, but going back to the sentimental items.
Yeah.
I often will talk to my customers when I'm out doing a presentation or something, and I will just say, think of something that's sentimental to you right now. Picture something that that's sentimental to you. And then, you have it.
Uh-huh.
So the reason I do that is I want to let them know that just because the item is not physically in front of you right now, you still have the memory. So you don't always have to have the physical item to have the memory.
That's a good point.
And something I will share is when I was talking about Matt Paxton, and we were talking about it's not about the stuff, it's about the stories behind the stuff.
Ah.
So there's a thing called Swedish death cleaning. Mm-hmm. And it sounds morbid, but it's not. It's actually a really fun time to spend with family or children. This slide kind of represents what happens if you don't declutter prior to becoming unhealthy. We never know when we're going to die. We just know we all are. Mm-hmm. And if something happens to you unexpectedly, your kids are going to have to deal with everything you left behind. So this is kind of a good slide for those who don't take time to downsize and declutter. But the other benefit of that is when you declutter now, it gives you control over where things go. Oftentimes, people will say, well, when I pass, I'm going to give this to so-and-so. And then what happens is the family fights over it. Yeah. It causes lots of turmoil. A lot of families split up over it. But now you have control over it. Another advantage is sometimes people will ignore it and say, I'll just do it later. And then something happens to them, and their children are either out of town, out of state, or they're overwhelmed emotionally. So it ends up in a landfill instead of being repurposed to someone who could actually use it.
A couple things there. It's like I have in my mind that I know I want this piece of furniture to go to this child, and this item to go to this. And to your point, it's like we'll just do it now. Give it to them now. You're in control. But two, you also get to see it in use and actually benefit from it. So that's a real cool one. But this one, I love this little comic here, but it's kind of a scary realization because, one day, son, all this will be yours. How often does that happen? And with all of those things come, you mentioned earlier, the guilt of what do I do with all of it? And I could imagine there's so many folks that end up in those shoes. They don't know what to do. They feel obligated to keep or find some way to repurpose, or one fell swoop, let's throw it all away. I'm sure you've seen it all.
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it is very common for them to be left with this because a lot of people don't understand. When you do Swedish death cleaning, which I actually did this with my dad in the office, not even knowing that's what it was, but he shared with me a book that they were both in, my parents were both in, that had we not talked about the story behind it, I would have probably just donated that to a library and not even known the story. So when you share stories of your most treasured items, your legacy, what you want to be known for, just share your most sentimental items with your kids and tell the story behind it, because you learn stories about your loved ones that you never would have known had you not done the Swedish death cleaning. So it ends up being a really good time together and something that you'll treasure forever.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a really cool concept. I've heard of that before. Is there is that just a concept, or is there a resource that people can look to for the process of Swedish death cleaning?
Well, basically, I don't know if I'd say there's a process, but once you hit 50 and beyond, a lot of times we just hang on to stuff because we've always hung on to it.
Yeah.
Now, think about your life and, again, how you want to spend your time now, what you want to do with your time, how you want your space to look, and let go of those items that no longer serve a purpose and don't add value to your life. I tell people if it doesn't add value, it doesn't belong in your life, because everything you own should add value.
Absolutely.
So really the process is to just be thinking about it, maybe start talking to your parents. If you have older parents, start talking to your parents about that. And that sometimes will start the process. Now, I often hear from clients that their parents won't do it. They won't take that first step. And that's when I share about you have control now. It could end up in a landfill. You know, why not give to those less fortunate, give to those animal shelters that, you know, really need extra items.
Absolutely. And it looks like we've got pulled up here. Looks like there is a resource, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning.
Yes.
How to free yourself and your family from a lifetime of clutter.
And that is actually on Peacock. There's 8 episodes.
Now so there's a show. I'm
Yes.
actually looking at a book here, but there's
a show called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning on Peacock. There's 8 episodes. Now, the first episode is a little, you just have to get past it.
get through it, and then
Yeah, it's if I didn't love what I do, I don't know that I would have continued watching the rest of the series. But each scenario is a kind of a live scenario of, you know, someone with cancer or someone who has kids who has their items that they won't come and get. And some of it's humorous, but it's real life stories of how you can make your life better.
Well, so you've heard it here, folks. On Peacock, 8 episodes. Get through the first episode, and then you'll benefit
If you
from
have
the
kids
rest.
that won't come and get their stuff, go to episode 6.
Or even better, then you can fast forward. That's awesome. Well, you know, Tricia, I am so grateful for you, you know, joining us today and sharing so much of these insights. It's been incredible. I have a feeling a lot of our viewers have had a lot of the same aha moments that I've had through this process. You know, we typically end each episode with a signature question, in which this one it fits well with, because we're talking a lot about the stories and remembering. And so if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be and why?
I would say my love for helping people. I really love helping people through these life transitions. And the reason why is it's very rewarding in the end to see how it's impacting their life and how it's making such a difference. I've laughed with clients. Ooh, I'm going to get emotional. Okay.
Well, I would imagine that just
I've laughed and cried with clients, and it's really rewarding.
Well, just the sentiment of your response there, I would say that you're doing a phenomenal job of meeting that point of remembrance that you're looking for, is, you know, being known to help. The fact that you're that emotionally invested in the people that you work with and for, I think is a testament to that. So,
and many of them become friends, and, you know, we keep in contact. So it's really, really neat. But in reality, we should be deciding what we keep, not what we get rid of in the end.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Just the control of, you know, being in control. It's not control, it's being in control of yourself and your future and your things. So, all right. Well, Tricia, again, I thank you so much for your time with us today.
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
having me.
it. And I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions from our viewers. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.